Next up, we've got Debbie Wong. So Debbie is the founding artistic director of Renaissance Opera. Debbie is an interdisciplinary performance artist that loves to weave together sound, text, movement, and technology to create contemporary stories. In 2019, Debbie spearheaded Orpheus VR, an interactive virtual reality opera that was featured in the Immersed exhibit at the 2020 Vancouver International Film Festival. Everybody, please welcome Debbie.
Hello, everyone. Just quickly, a big shout out to Edward. That was such a great presentation, and I feel so inspired. And I especially want to go buy in a window now so that I can get my kid into motion capture. But thank you so much, Edward. I'm really inspired to be following your presentation. My name is Debbie Wong, I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the founding artistic director of Renaissance Opera, which operates on the ancestral traditional lands of the Squamish, the Tsleil-Waututh, and the Wetaskiwin peoples, colonially known as Vancouver, British Columbia. At Renaissance, we believe that art reimagines possibilities, and so we create immersive story worlds that inspire awe and orient audiences towards new and hopeful futures. Today, I'm talking about animating myths and revolutionizing live performance with real-time motion capture. And especially with some of the questions that came up during Edward's talk, I think I'll be touching on some of the same subjects that everyone seems to be interested in. So I hope that I will provide some new insights for you all. So today I'm specifically talking about our recent hybrid performance series called Eurydice Live from the Underworld, where we set out to reimagine what live performance could be by bridging the gap between performing arts practices that have really long-standing traditions and techniques, and the emerging and creative technologies that are revolutionizing all of our creative industries. Obviously, this is a huge topic. There's a whole conference today on this. So I'll specifically be speaking about integrating live motion capture into our performances. And I'll be sharing some of the ideas and concepts behind our work, as well as our technical and theatrical pipelines, and also how we leverage the best of creative technology and live performing practices so that we can navigate tech challenges and elevate our experiences that we produce for our audiences. So first, a little context. Opera, weird. Why are we referencing opera? Why do we make opera? Whenever I bring up the word opera, people immediately have an idea of what it looks and sounds and feels like. Often there's an image of a very big, grand proscenium stage, the opera singer with the horned helmet, shattering glass, maybe stuffy audience, gowns, tuxedos, people sleeping through very long performances. We get it. Opera has a reputation of being a kind of legacy art form, something that's very elitist, out of touch. But for the past 4 years, our team has been looking at opera through its history of collaboration and innovation. And something that I like to bring into my talks is that opera, Western European opera, essentially exists because in the 16th and 17th centuries, a multidisciplinary group of philosophers, scientists, artists, changemakers, poets, writers, singers, dancers were regularly gathering to leverage their collective creativity and prototype more impactful, more relevant, more epic, more immersive ways to tell stories. So at the same time that this is happening, theatrical design is also going through its own creative explosion, especially with advances in fields like randomly naval engineering being applied to set design and stage effects to really transport audiences to new worlds. And these new worlds, combined with the immersive and emotionalness of music, created a huge sensation and unlocked truly new ways of telling stories in the 17th century. I like to tell this little anecdote because immersive is such a huge industry today and it feels very fresh and new and emergent. But whenever I think about it, I like to look back on images like the one that you see up here of 17th century set design and think back on these collaborations that fostered that kind of creativity. I like to think back on those rooms where those artists and thinkers would challenge one another to push boundaries of what was possible. And I do this because I think I like thinking about my work as part of a history and a lineage, but also because it is a blueprint for innovation that produces epic, immersive storytelling that is truly born from interdisciplinary collaboration. So our production of Eurydice Live from the Underworld is a nod to Western European opera's origins, because the myth of Orpheus and Eurydice was one of the very first operas to be created and performed in a set kind of like this in the 17th century. And so we have very much taken these blueprints, the mythology, the history, the collaboration, these concepts, and applied them to our own questions today. So what would opera look like if it were invented today? And what are those 21st century epic storytelling forms that we love? What are the kinds of tools and technologies that we have access to reimagine live performance? Who are those artists, engineers, thinkers that we want to challenge to push the boundaries of what we think is possible?
I love video games. I'm a big video game dork. Why can't opera be like video games? Live from the Underworld is taking CGI avatars and sets and using video game engines and motion capture to create a very mythological, fantastical live stream performance series.
I think this is where the world of performance is going. I sit there in the room, just being relatively new to both VR and opera, constantly being blown away by the innovation.
Primarily, the body motion capture is being done with an Xsens suit. Getting the facial captures, we're using the iPhone's depth capture camera. We're able to merge them together with Reallusion, which is a software that allows you to combine motion capture from different places and put it all onto one character performance.
This combination of these two coming together has been really interesting. It's sort of like a form of puppetry where there's two people who have to puppet the avatar. The nice thing about working in this format is that we can let our imaginations run wild.
I think we're only in the beginning of what this experience can be.
So our team today is made up of our modern day 17th century cohort of thinkers and creators and artists. It's software engineers, motion capture and virtual production directors, as well as stage directors, contemporary ballet dancers, voice actors, set designers, lighting designers, all kinds of creative thinkers and builders. And together, we've been very interested in how we can empower storytelling for the stage with video game tools. I'm going to walk you through some of those tools and pipelines now, and then give you a little context of why we chose to work with the things that we're working with. In retrospect, there were kind of two things that were really governing our decision making as we tested many, many different products and many, many different softwares. The first one was accessibility and ease of use, and I really appreciate that Edward spoke to this as well. We're not a AAA game studio, we're a nonprofit indie arts organization, but we still wanted to be able to produce on a higher level and use tools and processes that were financially feasible for us, but that could also be passed on to other indie artists and artists who are interested in experimenting in this space. And the other thing that really helped us decide on our pipelines and our tools and methods were our performers. The performers work with us from day one. They're always in the creation spaces, testing spaces with us. And we were really adamant that our performers felt empowered versus encumbered with the technology. And this was one of our biggest decisions here was to especially work with the XSense suit. The difference between working with a marker and an optic system versus the markerless active system meant that our dancers could suddenly roll around on the floor, do anything that they need to, jump, twirl, and it really unlocked their choreography and performing. And it also meant, in terms of creating a live performance with a live audience, that we had the option to scale up or tour our productions in a much easier way. So we started working with the XSense suits. Our technical pipeline is a whole mishmash of tools. It kind of starts with our 3D artist, Conrad Sly, who used a combination of Character Creator and ZBrush to sculpt our characters, which were then imported into Real Illusion's iClone 7. We use the MVN Link suits paired with the Manus Meta gloves for body and hand data. And this was also streamed from the MVN Animate into iClone 7. We add facial data from the LiveFace iPhone application and assign all the different mocap sources to their respective characters inside of iClone. And the character and motion data was streamed out of iClone into Unreal 5, where we have created our environments and we're able to program some real-time visual effects, cloth simulation, and some interactive sound elements. For our most recent live stream performance, we did use actually the HTC Vive positioning aiding integration for the MVN suits. And our setup for that was we used 4 of the Vive light boxes on tripods, creating that 10-meter tracking area. And then we attached Vive trackers to the waists of our dancers so that we could improve the amount of drift during our performances. The other really important pipeline, which is half of our work, is also our theatrical pipeline. So our series started as an online experience only, where viewers would watch our episodes via YouTube Live, and they had the option to vote on branching narratives and even decide on different kinds of orchestration throughout the story. And at the end of our episodes, the audience would vote on what would happen next, and then we would go build that next episode. So it was a very interactive experience. It was really fun. We loved doing it, but there was also something missing. Coming from the background in live performance, there really is something that changes when an audience is in the same space with a performer. And so we wanted to open that up and create something more hybrid. So we brought in more theatrical staging, lighting design, and created a unique in-person experience to complement the online experience, where audiences who were attending in person could watch everything that happens behind the scenes as well as in the virtual world and experience a different kind of staging. As you saw in the little video clip that I showed, we also started working with our avatars kind of like in an old school puppets way, where different parts of the puppet or the avatar would be controlled by different performers. So after some kind of embarrassing experiments that included bike helmets, duct tape, and selfie sticks to very expensive head mounts to get the facial data, we decided to split the avatar into 2 performers and have the body performed by a dancer and the face performed by a singing actor. Edward brought up practice, practice, practice. And so deciding to have one avatar performed by 2 performers also solved a lot of our performance issues and that encumbering feeling that our performers were having. But it also allowed us to combine that virtuosity and that like thousands of hours of practice of 2 performers into one avatar, which was a really exciting discovery for us. Finally, another kind of theatrical pipeline discovery that we made is something we call the mocap conductor. We've sort of learned that not everything has or needs a tech solve. And so we also know that the tech that we're using is not necessarily initially designed to be used in the way that we're using it. So we're always navigating challenges like drift, like clipping. Sometimes things just, who knows what's gone wrong. But of course, as we all know, everything goes wrong all the time with tech. So by combining a theatrical pipeline with a technical pipeline, we've been able to deliver consistent performances, even though we are using everything in real time and live. And the mocap conductor is an important part of that. Instead of the orchestral conductor that leads instruments in the right timing and places in a musical experience, our mocap conductor is keeping their eye on the camera angles and the virtual production aspect of things, and giving signals to the performers on how to adjust their positioning and how to adjust their avatars if something goes wrong. And also if something even greater goes wrong, then they're there to call different camera angles or use some of our other tricks to divert audience attention while we're in the theater. So these are some of the main tools we've been using. I'll show you what that kind of looks like in reality. Oops, my audio's. There we go. So it looks like a million game computers, virtual reality headsets, energy drinks, violins, and keyboards on a very messy table. It means our dancers are working intimately with their avatars and also each other, and our stage managers to really establish the right spacing, and they're really tweaking every single part of movement with the avatar so that they can find the same expression out of their avatar that they do when they're dancing. It means that our lighting designers are working with our environment designers and creators to blend colors and color match, but also to bring textures out of the virtual world into the physical world so that we can blend that virtual and physical a little more seamlessly. It means that our singers and our voice actors are really taking the time to dig into the text and the way that they are singing so that they can capture singing. It requires all kinds of weird voice shapes, so it really requires detailed work with the text. But it's a different rehearsal process as well, as you see here. We have the singer up front and the dancer beside them, and they have to coordinate their expressions and their emotions and their physicalities so that the avatar facially and physically seems like it's telling the same story. And then finally, this is a look at the tech table. I'm playing the role of mocap director right now, or mocap conductor. So it's a lot of hand signals, pointing things out, and making sure it's running seamlessly. That's the little behind the scenes aspect of it. So I'll show you a clip now of what it looks like in performance. And this, you've seen clips from different performances over the past few years. So this one I'll show you now, I think is from 2022. What our team is up to now, we've been very inspired by all of these sort of small episodes we've been doing. Each one has been running about 15 to 20 minutes. We've paired it with other kinds of performances or experiences to build it out. But what we're really excited right now is that we are finally building a full-length immersive production that will premiere in Vancouver in November 2024 this year, and then we'll tour to Toronto and Brooklyn in the 25-26 season. And as we're building out that performance, we are it's very much the culmination of everything that I've kind of touched on today. But right now we're very inspired by motion capture and interactive audio. We're building sound sculptures using meta sounds inside of Unreal Engine that can be played by our dancers, allowing them to be in a musical duet, or in the case of the video I'll show you in a second, a musical quartet with the singers who perform the faces and voices of avatars. And oh, my video just made a thumbs up, sorry. So we're very interested in how we can continue deepening and digging into this combination of live motion capture and interactive capabilities and the visual effects abilities that are available to us in Unreal 5. So I'm going to show you a little clip of what that interactive sound looks like now and what we're working on. So you can't see the game engine, of course, but the dancers are triggering meta sounds with their gloves, and you can see when they trigger it from the VFX in the video. So in spite of all of the new technologies rising up around us, our greatest strength remains that bridge that we are creating between the past and the present, using these very tried and true performing arts techniques and practices to shape our emerging technologies into tools that really inspire our artists and our audiences. For this upcoming production that we will be building out, or that we are building out, we remain inside the Orpheus and Eurydice myth because it is part of that original blueprint that really inspired us. And it's that myth that inspired the first opera to be born, but more it's this story about the artist who changed destiny with the power of their voice. And so we feel like that is still very much relevant story today, and we have so many tools and exciting ideas to be able to express it. That is my presentation. Thank you so much for listening.
Awesome, Debbie. That's amazing. Like I said, I just think what you do is very, very unique. So the question is, would you say motion capture and retargeted characters help visualize another level of emotion behind the artistic performance?
Oh, I love that question. I think I don't know that it necessarily replaces anything, but what it does do for our artists is it allows them to imagine new kinds of characters because they are not bound by physical limitations. So our Eurydice avatar, which you saw many times, her whole hair is made out of roots and willow leaves, and her armor's made out of bark, and and the physics of her hair, I'm not sure if it was going in the video clips, but she's got this really wild hair, and she can control the environment around her. That's her superpower. So, those are easily executable when you're doing a stage performance. It'll also be very expensive. So it does allow us to stretch our imagination a little bit further. So we do enjoy that aspect of it.
Excellent. Okay. We have another one here. How do you overcome the specific challenges of sound engineering for opera, specifically acoustics, sound feedback, voice and instruments? Part of the allure of opera is how the sound is propagated in the space. And have you reached this quality in virtual production?
Yeah, so it's well, there's a lot of debate over opera whether it should use microphones or not, and we definitely use microphones in this case, especially when we're going out online when we have a hybrid experience, because it allows us greater control over the balance of sound, and because we are dealing with many different kinds of sound input. So we've got meta sounds inside of Unreal Engine. We've got just our track, which is being triggered in different ways. We have we in between our live action scenes, we will often have a short animated scene so that we can reset our mocap. So there's that audio that's coming out of OBS for running things. So there's many different audio sources. And what I think I just have to credit is Brian Topp, our sound engineer and our interactive audio developer. He just is really fantastic at live mixing and finding that balance so that the voice really still carries the performance. When we do it in theaters, it's of course just a lot of time tweaking the balance between the microphones and the live acoustics. And we often work in black box theaters so that we have a damper sound acoustic so that we can better control that sound inside the real space and the virtual space.
Awesome. Let's see. What are the considerations to avoid the technology hindering or getting in the way of the artistic performance?
Oh, yeah. It's funny. I think that's a hard one to answer because I think in the end, when we get really frustrated with something that doesn't work, it's because we aren't balancing technical and theatrical. So I think I said it that we've learned the hard way that there's never a tech solve. It's never just a tech solve. I mean, there probably is, but when we get really frustrated or we're really hitting our heads up against the wall, or something's really not working, it's funny how like a dancer will just come in and be like, oh, I can fix that. It takes about 2 seconds, whereas if it's just the technical team arguing about something, it could take hours and days. So I think my answer to that is really the balance of, and again, we work with our performers as co-creators. So everyone that you saw in those 2 slides, they are all equal contributors to what we're producing. And that has been a huge shift in creativity and in mindset, including problem solving for everyone on the team. So finding that way to really empower people to dig in and lean in with their specific bodies of knowledge helps us find those new pathways forward. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. Let's see. What is the most unstable part of the performance pipeline in terms of software once the main show is being delivered?
It is the motion capture, I will say. There's kind of a few different parts to this. First of all, Xsens is by far the most stable system that we've worked with that allows our performers to perform the way that they want to. Our biggest challenge is, of course, drift. And it's funny, we sometimes it just works so perfectly. And we don't have any issues. And then sometimes we will go to recreate exactly, we'll document it, we'll recreate exactly what we did. And it just doesn't work. And we're not entirely sure why. But of course, we, again, like everything you saw there, this is not edited in any way. There is no animation finessing this is just raw data coming straight out of Xsens and iClone. So that is why when we're working with our performers, it's really important for our dancers, for example, to have that extended time with their avatars, because it can be something as very simple as like how the wrist is moving, it looks like such a small movement that the dancer will do, and it changes the way that the avatar moves. So we navigate those issues with that. I brought up our new tool, which is the mocap conductor. So we work our staging in a way that for the past 2 iterations, I've been playing mocap conductor. So we work our staging so that the dancers can always see me at some point, and often I'll be like, move back, move forward, you stop, spread out. So we're kind of developing whatever that like physical language is to be able to communicate with the dancers when we're seeing the drift. And virtual production plays into this as well, in that when we're setting our camera angles and camera movements, we're making sure we always have that camera angle that's going to catch anything, no matter how far things have drifted. So again, it's even though that is a challenge, it's also an opportunity to be really creative and to lean in harder on the theatrical aspects and the theatrical know-how of the performers on stage. And that combination has allowed for a very elegant solution, and again, for us to consistently deliver live performances with live motion capture, even if that sounds terrifying.
Awesome. Okay. Let's see. Would you say that the dancers and the singers having body and face being captured respectively with different persons is better than a dancer doing both facial and body capture?
Yeah, I love that question. It's kind of a pros and cons thing. The reason we separated them out is because there was no way to get facial capture that would allow the dancer the full range of movement, especially in the neck and the head. There was something weird about trying to lip sync to a singer, of course, too. And then the opposite version of that is if the singer is in the mocap suit, they don't have the same range of motion as a professional contemporary ballet dancer does. So it was really interesting to make that discovery, to separate it out. The challenges of that is that sometimes, when you're not physically acting and you're just playing the face, you can end up with dead face where you're just kind of waiting for your turn to sing. And then of course the avatar looks grumpy. So there's always that, even though the body's not moving or being physical in a scene, there's still facial acting that needs to happen. And it's been an interesting process to get the dancer and the singer to rehearse together. Sometimes they will face each other so that they can mimic each other with the physical gestures, so that the vocal performance feels integrated with the physical. Sometimes the dancer will be in front and the singer will be behind, and they'll follow each other around the spaces they're rehearsing, so that the actor can have the physicality and feel what it's like to be in motion in different parts of the script. So we're still discovering what those techniques are to be able to navigate that. But for us, it's been a really great solution to not limiting any kind of performance.
Excellent. Okay. Excellent. We got a few more. What are your next steps / plans to further engage your audience during performances?
Yeah, so the new performance, or the performance that we're building out for November, it's very much meant to, you saw our videos where it's still that kind of proscenium style. The audience is over here, the performance is happening up there. The performance is going to be set in the Sticks, which is imagined to be this cyberpunk queer bar in the underworld. So our audiences will very much be sat inside of the set. They will be immersed in the story and the action. Actors, dancers will be all around them, and we're creating a set design that integrates screens and physical set objects in a more seamless way, so that we can project on different surfaces and have our avatars kind of grow out of different parts of the set. So we're hoping that we can really make it feel immersive for people who are there physically. And we are also working out the interactive audio aspect. Our dream is to be able to create a way that the audience, much like they did in our online performances, can interact with the orchestration as well. Our work actually started in virtual reality, where we created a 10-minute interactive opera prototype. And inside that prototype, the audience member plays the role of fate, where they can breathe life into something or take life away. And what this does is change the orchestration depending on what you interact with in the environment. So we want to take that immersive world building that we had from the virtual reality experience and the interactive orchestration and audio, and bring that into live performance as well. So that's where those are the two main things we're hoping to kind of tease out.
Alrighty. Let's see. I believe you did mention this in your presentation, but we have somebody asking. Let's see. What are you using for the facial capture?
Yeah, we're just using the iPhone. Again, like we tested a bunch of different options. We're just using the iPhone depth camera and live face. Again, we're cheating it a little bit in that, like, we made the choice to use very stylized avatars, so that there's certain facial things that you wouldn't ever pick up because the avatar is quite stylized. But we just couldn't get a really big difference in range from the iPhone to the other systems that we tested. So we stuck with iPhone because, again, it's accessible to more indie creators. So.
Now, is that the one that integrates with iClone, or is that the one that integrates directly into Unreal?
No, so for the performance that's coming up, we are going to switch to the Unreal pipeline. We'll be using MetaHuman and what is theirs called? FaceLink? No, I always mix up the names and everything. But yes, we will be using the Unreal one. The one you saw with the content we've done has been the iClone Live Face 2 iClone.
Okay, looks like I think we got one more here. Since the facial expressions are way more in Opera than like other movement / actions, how is mocap used and how effective is it? Is that says a WRT syncing?
Okay, with real time syncing. Yeah. Okay, so it's been tricky. Like, I will say but. So this sounds so silly, but we just try to use really good chords for everything. So all of our latency issues, we started in one place where there was, like, when we first streamed out, there was at least 7 seconds of delay, and we were like, what is going on here? So, from that very early starting point to slowly getting it down to a barely noticeable amount of lag for anything that we're doing. But the face is always the most difficult for us. So using that stylized avatar. But the other thing we noticed is that when you're speaking, we tend to use, like, as I can see from my face right now, we're using really fast motions with our lips and our face, and our eyes are doing many things. Syncing is actually a little bit slowed down. So you're actually using slightly more exaggerated facial expressions. You might hold the facial expression for a bit longer. So even though it's a more exaggerated use of the face, that actually does translate a lot better to facial capture, because it always picks up those big range of motions. It's the very small detailed things that we often have issues with. So we try to find that balance between speaking and singing. One of our experiences has a rap number in it. So the choreography is very elaborate there, so that people aren't, like, staring at the faces trying to see if every single word lines up or not.
Excellent, Debbie. So that looks like all the questions. Thank you so much. Again, I think what you do is it's amazing, and it's very unique. I think I told you a little while ago, I'm just so impressed with the fidelity. How again, you everything's so clear, and it really, again, there's very minimal movement or drift. Everything seems to be just very clear. So whatever pipeline that you've kind of figured out, it's incredible. It really is.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, and we're excited to keep working with XSense and showing you what comes next.
Excellent. Thank you, Debbie. Again, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.